Good evening and welcome to the November 4th Board of Trustees, Village of Monroe meeting. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Just for notes, behind you is the exit, and over to your right is the second exit that we locate. First order of business is I need a motion to approve the minutes from October 1st.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Thank you. Second, I need a motion to accept the minutes as presented for October 15th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain, I wasn't here.
Aye, so carried. Thank you. First order of business, the appointment of Keith Allen to the Planning Board. Keith? Come on up, sir. Good evening. Good, sir.
Aye.
So the board resolves that Mayor Dwyer approve the recommendation and appoint Keith Allen to fill an empty spot on the planning board created when the Board of Trustees expanded the planning board from 5 to 7 members. Mr. Allen's term will be for 5 years, effective 11/4/19 through 3/31/2024. I make a motion that we accept that appointment.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Second order of business is the appointment of Giovanni Ciaffi. Giovanni. Resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the recommendation of Mayor Dwyer and appoint Giovanni Ciaffi of 36 McGarrett Road to a part-time position of a paid intern. Mr. Ciaffi will start with video recording the Board of Trustees meetings beginning with November 19, 2019 meeting at an hourly salary of $11.80 to be allocated from the budget line A1989.1000, General Government Support, Personal Services. Mayor Dwyer hopes to have Mr. Ciaffi recording the Planning and Zoning Board meetings beginning in January of 2020. I need a motion.
I will happily make that motion.
And I will second that, only as long as you promise to make us look good.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Sorry? Yeah. Next order of business, the completion of probationary period for Willis Roski in the Water Department. Resolved that having completed the required probationary term required by Orange County Human Resources Water Treatment Plant Operator William Ostrowski is hereby given a permanent status for civil service requirements. An updated MSD 426-B will be submitted to complete the process. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Thank you. Congratulations, Will. Next order of business, Trustee Hool.
Yes, in a memo from Police Chief Guzman, he requests that we accept the resignation of Sergeant Anthony Amatetti due to his retirement, which will be effective on November 18th, 2019. Sergeant Amatetti began his career in 1994 working for the village of Elmsford and joined the Monroe Police Department in July of 2003. and he dedicated the last 25 years of his life to law enforcement. The board would like to thank Sergeant Amatetti for his 16 years of service to the Village of Monroe, and we wish him our best on his retirement. I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried. Sergeant, you here?
He's not.
He's not.
He's
Okay.
in. I spoke with him earlier today, and I extended our best wishes to him.
Okay. Best wishes for sure. Next order of business, Trustee Hool.
Yes, in another memo from Chief Guzman, he writes asking us to accept his recommendation for the appointment of Douglas M. Kraus to the position of Administrative Sergeant effective November 18th, 2019, at a starting salary of $114,448 as per the agreement between the Village of Monroe and the Monroe Police Benevolent Association. I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried.
Where-
Congratulations, sir.
Where-
Okay. Trustee Hool.
Chief Guzman was a very busy man this week. In another memo from Chief Guzman, he has requested that the Board of Trustees accept his recommendation and appoint Anthony Amatetti to the position of part-time police officer functioning as a school resource officer effective November 21st, 2019, at an hourly salary of $32 per hour. This appointment is a result of the agreement between the Village of Monroe and the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District to provide an SRO program in the schools that are within the village's geographical bounds. Mr. Amatetti is a former member, or will be a former member as of November 18th, of the Monroe Police Department, and once appointed will attend the school resource officer training. I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye. Congratulations, Sergeant Amatetti. Okay. Trustee Hool once again.
And in our final memo from Chief Guzman, he writes to us asking the board to accept his recommendation and approve the appointment of Detective Timothy D. Young to the position of sergeant effective November 18th, 2019, at the starting sergeant salary of $104,415 as per the agreement between the Village of Monroe and the Monroe Police Benevolent Association. All requirements of the Orange County Department of Human Resources certification list of eligibles for exam number 782971 have been fulfilled, and the necessary MSD 426 will be forwarded to the Department of Human Resources.
need
I
a
put that
motion.
in the form of a motion.
I'll second.
Seconded?
Yep, second.
Call the question?
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried.
Okay. Oh, he's crying.
Oh, this is a happy time, Guy.
This room feels so big.
definitely overwhelmed. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations. Between the time change and this
Yeah.
room feels big.
My mother did that today.
You know the time.
Yes, this
Speaking
one's
of
mine.
time change, she gets the sundowners.
Oh, I hate that.
Okay. Awesome. Congratulations, Sergeant. Well deserved. Next order of business is the certification of the unpaid village taxes. Resolved, that the Board of Trustees is hereby authorized to sign and certify the unpaid village tax return upon verification by Treasurer Murray that the unpaid tax amount of $150,006.64 is correct. It is further resolved that upon certification and verification, the document is to be submitted to the Orange County Department of Finance by November 15, 2019. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Thank you.
You guys can go. Go celebrate. Enjoy. Krauses, have a party.
Have a great night, guys.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you so
night.
much for sharing them with us. Neil, I got the updated sheet from the chief.
Okay. Okay, next order of business. Make sure Dad's paying.
It was great to see you, Mr. Kraus.
And just leave something there for me, too. Okay. We had an application submitted by Tim Mitz, resident at 236 High Street, for an event to meet Santa at Rest Haven. Initially, we had a location identified by Mr. Mitz. The board has reviewed it and has met with Mr. Mitz, and I believe that we are in agreement that we're going to move the location to Smith's Clove Park. That is correct. And as such, I believe the chief, you're going to review the allocation of time. I assumed it was 2 men? 3 hours? That's correct. Right. Okay, good. I'm sorry, is that what you just said?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you say?
That's
I'm sorry.
okay.
Good. Okay, so I'm gonna read it through with Smith's Clove Park as noted. I'll read it through with Smith's Clove Park, right? Okay. So an amended event application was submitted by resident Tim Mitz, owner of 236 High Street, to modify his previously approved Meet Santa at Rest Haven event scheduled for Saturday, December 7, 2019 at his home. Mr. Mitz is requesting a landing zone in Smith's Clove Park, along with the Monroe Police Department for assistance to allow a helicopter to land in Smith's Clove Park on the football field to deliver Santa and Mrs. Claus, who will then be transferred to his home for the event. The helicopter is expected to land at approximately 10:45 a.m. and take about 15 minutes. Additional certificates of liability insurance have been received by both Mr. Mitz and the helicopter company, Independent Helicopters, LLC of 1032 First Street, New Windsor, New York, 12553. The amended event application has been reviewed and approved by the police department. Just for purposes of the resolution, I'm going to mention several things. First thing is the contingent upon the DPW and building department just approving it. I don't suspect or think of anything else, but I'm just going to put that in there.
Who?
The building department and the DPW.
Oh, approving.
They did. They originally approved your application there. Changing the location to me shouldn't have any bearing, but I have to allow that to occur, right?
Nothing's changing from the original.
Nothing. But just for the formality of it, we're gonna do it, all right? The police department will utilize 2 officers on 3 hours of overtime to assist with establishing a landing zone at Smiths Clove Park with an estimated cost of additional police protection of approximately $462. Mr. Smith, why do I keep saying Smith? Isn't that amazing? I don't know.
I
You
think
wish.
that- Well,
Mr.
because
Mitz,
It's at Smiths Clove Park, so
yeah,
that's
maybe
why
that's
we-
what it is.
Yeah, Mr.
Seashells,
Smith.
she-shells at the seashore. Mr. Mitz will be responsible to pay at least 10 days prior to the event. Additionally, the police department will require aircraft and pilot information to be provided to them prior to final approval of the event. The building department approved the application with the following conditions: that it is approved by the fire chief of the fire department, and that the fire department tank and rescue are required at the landing zone, and I believe that's also been approved. So we'll just, do we have something in writing? Did they send they were gonna send something in writing, or?
They were gonna deal directly with chief, the chief.
Okay,
I wasn't getting it.
okay. Okay. Okay, so the, resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the amended event application submitted by resident Tim Mitz requesting a landing zone at Smiths Clove Park to allow a helicopter to land in the park to deliver Santa and Mrs. Claus to the Village of Monroe and then be transported to his home at 236 High Street for his Meet Santa at Rest Haven on December 7th, 2019, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Approval is contingent upon the requirements set forth by the police and building department stated above. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
Could you give me the police department overtime costs again?
462
Is the full amount of the cost?
is the full amount.
462. Okay. I'm a little concerned that we haven't received the pilot's information nor the aircraft information yet.
That was, according to the pilot, the independent helicopter,
Mm-hmm.
they were provided prior to the date that takeoff, because the question is which pilot's gonna be working that day.
Okay, from,
And that's obviously a condition to the whole thing.
sure, sure. I've had discussions with the police department regarding this, as I stated that I would when we originally met. In order for the police department to give their final approval for this, they would need to do a background check on the pilot and also on the aircraft. And that could take a day of background checking, assuming that nothing happens in the Village of Monroe that would prevent them from focusing on this. So we're going to need this sooner.
Well, I did previously provide to the board the phone number of the gentleman who's orchestrated this for me.
But he's not necessarily the gentleman who will be flying the helicopter.
It's the agency that they're referring to, who you would go directly to get that license information. That's not stuff that I'm privy for. They're not gonna give it to me, they gotta give it to the chief.
Okay.
So I'll let them know that, though, that they need it to, at least 5 days in advance, so you got time to do your background check.
I would like it more than 5 days in advance. I mean, I'm inclined to hold up I'm inclined to table this until we have that information. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think that this background check of the aircraft and the pilot is of extreme consequence to the success of this.
I totally agree, that's why I handled I asked this company specifically handle the transaction, so they can provide everything to the police department.
Okay.
I don't know that I would table it. I think that I would go with it, and then if Chief Guzman doesn't get satisfactory results from your portion of that, then it's a no-go.
That's fine with me.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
Okay.
If it's conditioned, that's fine as well. They just don't know who's working that day, who's gonna be flying. They may not know until a week before, but these are all licensed pilots out of Stewart Airport.
What is the, do we have a meeting, what's the very last meeting prior to?
December 3rd,
December 3rd is the very last meeting
Yes.
prior to
the event.
the event. Okay. And how is Santa getting from Smith Clove Park to to Rest Haven?
Well, there are 3 options being floated right now.
Mhm.
One is, when I met with the fire commissioners about 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
they had offered that it has to go to the members of using their 1925 truck to transport Santa from there to Crest Haven.
This is the members of the, Mon-
Monday.
okay.
Yeah, Matt, the president, I
Mhm.
was dealing
Mhm.
directly with him. They have a vote on Wednesday.
Mhm.
The second option was, someone mentioned someone in the community owns an old pump truck,
Mhm.
fire truck, to reach out to them. The third would be my own transportation, me transporting him from there up to the house.
Okay. Okay. Those are my concerns. Those are my questions.
Well, I'm glad that, I was concerned originally about the cost, but now that it's down to 462, I have seen helicopters land at Smith Clove Park, really more for injury, and they landed on the first baseball field. I don't know if that's where they're landing, but I have
Landing on a
seen it.
football field.
Okay.
And just so the board knows, also, I've expressed to the mayor, I understand that typically it's a 20% cost to who's ever running the permit order. I've actually put it on to the mayor, and I don't have a problem with it, we're gonna pay a full cost. There's no money out of pocket from the village. So the 400 and whatever the
62.
chief says is the cost, we're gonna pay ourselves.
Hmm.
The village is not incurring any cost to this event. We just appreciate the opportunity to
Right.
bring them to town for the weekend, actually. I hear you guys got stuff going on Sundays too, so
Right.
Right.
never know where Santa might be.
Okay, so I think as I stated, with the following contingent upon the approval from the fire department, the fire department tanker and rescue requiring them be on site, and the police department receiving all required documents, including the helicopter apparatus, the equipment, and the pilots. Now, when you say background check, are you referring to his license?
Chief Guzman could probably give us more information on that.
That would be more in regards to FAA licenses,
Okay,
any special endorsements that are needed, aircraft and information.
okay.
And I don't know, do you have Abby's number up there in Stewart?
No,
I'll get you that number, and then you can deal directly with her, so I can't mess up with paperwork. But I know it's an FAA clear, that I've been assured.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So I need a motion to accept with the contingencies. Sorry?
Call the question.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Sorry. Call the question?
With the contingencies.
With the contingencies.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The kids are gonna be grateful.
Okay. Next order of business is a request for a license agreement for 28 Ironworks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
James McKay?
My name is Joe McKay. I'm an attorney with the town of Brooklyn and Dyer in New York. I'm here this evening representing Charles and Nina Campagna. They're longtime residents of the village. They raised their family here. Recently, there was an inspection of their property by building inspector Prue, to determine whether or not their side yard and rear yard fences were within the village's requirements. What happened at that time is the inspector believed that the fence is located within the village's drainage easement. So based upon the building inspector's recommendation, we're here tonight seeking your approval to allow Sonora to be determined, to determine whether or not there'll be a license agreement or some other agreement that we would enter into the village to resolve the issue. And I'll note for the record that Attorney Cassidy was able to provide me with a copy of the drainage easement procedure. So we're gonna review that, and then we're looking for authority to work with her or attorney to resolve it.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So I think what we're going to do is give council an opportunity to read through
Ms. Terhune has fully advised me on this, and I've been reviewing
Oh, okay.
all the documents. And we did receive a memo today from Inspector Prue with respects to the fence. So there's a couple of issues. There is a drainage easement to the village, and it's back from the 70s when the property was first subdivided. And the fence at issue, as well as some underground pool equipment, is within that easement. The village has in the past granted licenses where there's de minimis errors in order to prevent someone from having to tear out a perfectly good fence. In this case, it happens to be a drainage easement. There are some, in addition to the easement, the Inspector Prue has issued a determination that the material and height of the fence doesn't match code, so even if you grant the license, that would have to be addressed by the property owners with respects to that determination, whether that's a trip to the ZBA for an interpretation or whether they change the material. Right now, she's interpreted that it is poultry wire. It's a wire fence and not a chain link, but a thinner wire. So that is what's in front of you now.
Could I ask a few questions? That fence that we're referring to, the one that's above the required height or limiting height, is that fence for landscape protection?
Essentially, yes.
Just for the record, I'll state that I know Chuck Compagna and I know his wife, so I will not be, I'll be abstaining from any motions that the board takes, but on behalf of the board, I'll ask a few questions, just this is a recognition of this. So we identified it is for landscape, and, because we all know we have a terrible deer problem in Maple Knolls.
Well, and for the record, there is also a tool, so I'm sure that, some type of fencing would be required.
Oh, this is the only fence?
Correct.
Oh.
And by the way, just we'll answer any of your questions. I haven't seen the memo that you're referring to from the
Okay.
inspector, so we'll answer anything we can.
Okay,
As long as we can.
I will give you my copy, because
yeah, you could actually, you have this?
Not yet.
From what I understand, Mr. McKay, if you could, there are three issues. One is the easement and the placement of the fence in the easement. The second one is the pool equipment and shed as well?
Correct.
Okay. So I would think that you would take an opportunity and then maybe come back and discuss this?
Sure. I think probably what would happen in a practical sense is I would discuss it with the attorney.
Okay,
Discuss whether or not, for instance, the shed must be moved or not, what we're going to do with the fence, as Attorney Cassidy said. If now there's an official interpretation about the fence, we may need to go to the ZBA to review that interpretation, or perhaps for a variance. So that's, fence is an issue. The issue as to whether or not the shed needs to be relocated is an issue. So we need to work through those
Okay.
things to the satisfaction of the building department.
sure,
And your counsel.
absolutely. I appreciate that.
And that will also be we confirmed with the building department that the original pool permit is still open because of these other, it was never closed out, and because of these issues. But once these issues are solved, we can close it.
Okay,
I can, just so everybody is comfortable with this, in the past few months, it's come to light that there's some open permits with respect to the Campagna's residence. Years ago, there were some substantial renovations. They submitted plans, the plans were received by the building department. The work was completed, but the permits were not closed out. In the last few weeks, based upon additional inspections, some of those permits have been closed out. And we're working with the building department to have the final inspections to resolve those issues.
sure.
Basically, what I'm saying is,
Okay, terrific. Thank you, sir, appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, council, so just so I'm clear, because I actually thought, I put the cart before the horse over here. I had thought this was kind of more, already kind of acknowledged and in-depth, determination, but, so we're going to allow them to do what they need to do. We're gonna do what you need to do, and you're gonna work on it together until the building department then comes back at it?
The first issue for the board, as a board, is to decide whether it's willing to grant a license, to allow that fence. The fence is less of an issue. The other issue is there is, my understanding is there is pool plumbing within the bounds of that, the description of that easement. Obviously, should there ever be an issue where we need to dig it up, or for whatever, we need to trench it, we need to whatever, the pool equipment is gonna go bye-bye. So that's a discussion that this board needs to have as to a comfort level with respects to granting of a license. There's certainly, you have done it in the past, somebody misses, they're just over, they're 6 inches over the easement from their property line with a fence or something along those lines, rather than making them take down a very expensive fence. So that becomes a business decision for the board. Obviously, any license would have a carve-out that if we need to do work within that easement, which is our right to do, both the pool equipment and the fence, if they
Would
have
be
to be,
removed.
if they have to come down, they have to come down for that. Now, given the nature of the easement, the odds of that are likely small. It's essentially a drainway. It's not a active roadway, it's not a pathway or anything along that nature, but I leave that to your DPW to advise you on that.
What would happen if we granted my concern is the pool equipment, so what happens if we grant a license and they then decide a couple years from now, they sell the house? Yeah, go right ahead. Oh,
That's actually why we're not seeking to have you authorize anything this evening.
Right.
Attorney Cassidy and I, and Attorney Trishman and I want to kind of work through the issues. So, and I did receive a copy of the easement. There aren't any specific terms and conditions prohibiting those things in the drainage easement area. So that might be an issue that we have to work through. So whether it's a license agreement or some other type of agreement, that's an issue that we need to
Right.
discuss. So, again, I agree with everything that Attorney Cassidy is saying, and that's exactly why we're not looking for any approval tonight, just your authorization so that we can deal with the council to resolve those issues.
So if you want to authorize Elise and I, more likely Elise, which I'll relay that
Sure.
authorization to have further discussions, then that is what you can authorize tonight, is further discussions.
Right.
About that.
Okay,
I have a couple questions.
no, yeah,
I've taken a look at this, at these plans. How far into the easement is the pool equipment and the shed and the fence?
It could be a few feet. I don't have an easement that accurately depicts the survey that accurately depicts the easement.
Mm-hmm.
But the easement that I've received doesn't prohibit those, the easement of space doesn't prohibit those things from being there. The easement is for drainage, to allow water to go.
Right, right.
So some, and again, this is something that I'll work with the village attorney on, some easements have specific terminology. You're not allowed to construct certain types of permanent structures in the easement, or even temporary structures in the easement. That could be terms and conditions of anything that was created at the time the subdivision was first laid out. Based upon what I received this evening, there don't appear to be any specific restrictions about what can be an easement. We've ultimately determined that the fence and the equipment may be
I see where you're going with that, but the easement also allows us access to that space, and, you know, knowing that these pieces are there could potentially cause a delay in being able to allow for that drainage. So I'd be interested in knowing how far into these easement these pieces are. Do you guys know how far into the easement they are?
It's not equal. So.
It goes on a slant. A lot of the properties do that.
4 feet off,
Mhm.
some spots it's
Okay.
2 feet off.
And my other question is, this work has already been done, right? You're requesting a license agreement after the fact?
30 years ago.
It was done 30 years ago. Okay.
Well, based upon plans that were submitted to the building department and approved at the
So this pool permit has been open for 30 years?
I'm sorry, the fence was 25. The pool has been, what, 15?
2005.
So 14 years since
The permit
2000.
was 2005.
Okay. Okay.
We didn't
Actually,
realize any-
2004.
Honestly, we haven't realized any of this stuff. This was all eye-opening to me.
When you applied for the pool permit, on the plans, where did it show that the pool equipment would be?
where it's actually installed.
That's where it is on the pool permit?
I have a plan, you have to actually physically look at the building department file.
Uh-huh.
The plan that I have, which is referenced, at least referenced, I think, in some of the correspondence from that time,
Uh-huh.
has a full plan, landscaping, pool installation, heating system, shed, it's pretty detailed.
I think it's in the memo I handed you.
There is a pool plan here that shows that the pool equipment is next to the house. Based on where pool filter is written, it looks like it is immediately adjacent to the house.
Well, I have a more extensive plan.
The plans for this are gorgeous, by the way.
I do have, I don't want
Wasn't this a-
Yeah, I don't want you to either, to be frank with you. Mr. McKay, I would suggest that what we do is allow you, and we're gonna authorize council to continue the discussion. And then I think, when you're prepared to come back, so that we have something that we need to
I agree.
Yeah.
Just so the board is aware,
Mhm.
there was a significant rendering prepared and legally submitted to the building department
Mm-hmm.
15 or more years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So again, I don't want to make any misrepresentations of what might have been submitted 15 years ago.
Right.
That's what we believe. And,
Okay.
you know, in good faith, they constructed what they submitted to the building department. It's true that those permits were not closed out, but we have been receiving inspections over the last few weeks, and all the other work that had been done has been approved, so we don't expect this to be any different.
Okay.
And it was all prepared by architects and experts, so we don't expect any problems.
Before we did anything, architectural drawings. We were shocked that we didn't even know that these things weren't closed out. I would have thought that the general contractor
Right.
would have gotten
Right.
certificates of occupancy.
You would not
Sure.
be the first nor the last that that happened to.
Jay Wilkins lived in our house through this whole thing. I mean, if he was there once, he was there 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding. And he never said a thing. So when we found out just recently that these things weren't closed out, that's why we got counsel, because we were like, we had no idea.
Right.
I mean, quite honestly, the money we put in the backyard is 3 times what we paid for the house.
Wow.
So with the deer,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm cutting my fees just so I can go there on.
you can only replace arborvitaes that are 18 feet tall.
Right.
How many times
I know.
before you're like, I can't afford this anymore?
Yeah.
Right.
For a
Mhm.
deer.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried everything to keep them out,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
other than a shotgun.
Right. Okay, we're good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Every time I walk away,
You're done.
No,
We're gonna authorize council to, thank you.
and I'll coordinate that with Elise.
Okay, very good, thank you.
thank you.
Next order of business, authorization to sign a 20-year temporary easement for the County of Orange to the Village of Monroe. Resolved, the Board of Trustees authorize Mayor Dwyer to sign the 20-year easement with Orange County for the purposes of, to perform work within the county easement along the Heritage Trail to improve pedestrian safety along Lake Street and Stage Road. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
A second, please.
I'll second.
Any questions? You all know where this is at? This is for the intersection out here with Carpenter, Lake, and Stage.
Yep.
Okay. So, let's call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business is the construction cost estimate for 43 Freeland Street site plan, 214-1-62. Resolved, the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of the Planning Board's engineer, John O'Rourke, P.E. of Lankin Tully Engineering, and approve the estimated construction costs for the 43 Freeland Street site plan project, which includes a proposed addition to an existing single-family house for the use as a neighborhood shul, mikveh, and addition to an existing single-family house for the use as a neighborhood, and residence for a rabbi located at 43 Freeland Street in the amount of $65,206.90. Engineer O'Rourke stated that he was satisfied the amount is sufficient to cover the cost of the improvements as required by the Village of Monroe zoning code regulations.
I'll make the motion that we accept the cost estimate.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Next order of business is 3Tel Holdings, cash bond release. That's Route 326-208, 203-3-3.2. Resolved, the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of Building Inspector Cox and release the cash bond held by the Village of Monroe in the amount of $25,625.32 back to 3Tel Holdings. Building Inspector Cox stated that he has reviewed the site for compliance with the approved site plan dated March 20th, 2017, and found the site to be in full compliance.
Make a motion that we release the cash bond.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
No.
Call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Next order of business is the authorization for changes to the Zoning Board of Appeals application procedure. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approve the modifications requested by the Zoning Board of Appeals to their application checklist and procedures and require an applicant to furnish the Zoning Board of Appeals one digital copy of an application in a PDF format, along with all required documents as laid out in its application checklist and procedures. This digital copy is in addition to the already required one original and 8 copies. The addition of the applicant's submission in a digital format will facilitate the review, storage, and maintenance of application materials and will be a benefit to the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I need a motion.
Make the motion.
I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Debbie?
Yep.
Any further discussion? Call the question?
Aye.
Aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business, Trustee Conklin.
In a memo from Ernie Maybe requesting for Will Ostrowski and Jamie Prince to attend the Hudson Valley Waterworks Conference on Wednesday, November 13th, 2019 in Montgomery. The conference will cover a variety of topics, including DOH, regulatory update, leaks detection, assistant management, and GIS management. Oh, I'm sorry. Management of PFOS. I wish I knew what half of these stood for, by the way. Water filtration. The total cost of the conference is $60 and includes lunch, and they will be utilizing a Village of Monroe vehicle for transportation. So I put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? I have a question that maybe you could just find out. So the asset management and GIS, I want to know if that's the diamond maps. It doesn't say it that way, but I would like to know if that is in fact that. Because she does not know how to use that. She wasn't trained yet.
No, I know that, we had that discussion.
Okay, so I
And
want,
that's what you believe that is?
that's what, well, GIS would refer to that, right? I believe, yep. Okay,
What about all this other stuff, Neil?
well, there's multiple items on the agenda, including leak detection, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So this one topic, maybe not.
that's what I'm just curious,
All right,
because I know that's where we got our training from. Okay,
no question.
call the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. We had a first and second, right?
Yes.
We're gonna table the next item, which is the
Fire hydrant?
fire hydrant at 463 stage. Next order of business is request to travel additional Orange County Municipal Federation fall classes for Richard McCarthy and Dan Morgada. Resolve the Board of Trustees approve the attendance of ZBA members Richard McCarthy and Dan Morgada to attend the following land and use planning courses. Dick McCarthy to attend the November 14, 2019 evening session of 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This course will consist of a discussion on stormwater and provide participants of an understanding of what stormwater is and why stormwater should be a concern to planning and zoning board members. The cost of the evening session is $15 per member. Dan Morgada, full-day class session. Date is yet to be determined, as original date was canceled due to weather. This all-day course from 8:30 to 3:30 will consist of presentations from Orange and Rockland regarding the installation of non-wire alternatives for energy storage, as well as an afternoon presentation from Deborah Church, Commissioner of the Orange County Planning Department, and Dan Shapley, Water Quality Program Director from Riverkeeper, Inc., and will provide an overview on identifying and protecting drinking water sources such as reservoirs, watersheds, and wellheads. The cost of the full-day session is $60 per member. The total cost of attendance is $75 and will be allocated from A 8010.4720 zoning education. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Aye.
Aye, so carried, thank you. Next order of business, an amendment to the date for the 2020 Village of Monroe elections. Whereas New York State Election Law Section 15-1041B of the election law provide that the elections held in March of each year will be held on the third Tuesday in March, and whereas when the third Tuesday in March falls on the 17th day, the Village Board of Trustees is required to adopt a resolution providing the election will be held on March 18th. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Monroe Board of Trustees does hereby adopt this resolution changing its 2020 general election date from Tuesday, March 17th to Wednesday, March 18th, due to Section 15-1041B of the New York State election law. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second, please.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried, thank you. Offices to be filled at the March 18th, 2020 election. Resolve the Board of Trustees designate the following offices to be filled pursuant to Section 104-104 Subdivisions 3A of the election law at the village election to be held on Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, located at 7 Stage Road. 2 trustees and 1 village justice position, both 4-year terms. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
A second, please.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call the question.
Aye.
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 Aye, so carried, thank you. Okay, any of the trustees have anything they'd like to say?
I do. Tomorrow is Election Day. I hope that everyone takes their time to go to the polls tomorrow and vote. My husband was a combat medic in Afghanistan in 2008, and it was very difficult for citizens in Afghanistan to vote. They had to travel for miles on foot, stand in line for hours, protected by armed soldiers. So when you think of how people will go to those efforts to vote, and then we don't necessarily exercise that right so much here, it can be a little disheartening. So I encourage everyone to get to the polls tomorrow and exercise their right.
Hear, hear. It was hard-earned. Anyone else, Deb?
I don't have anything
Mr.
there.
Conklin? Okay. Council, anything on your end? Okay. I'd like to open up the floor for public comment, please. Mr.
Oh, yes.
Sir?
We're
John,
gonna let them
yeah,
go first,
it's
John,
okay,
if that's
yeah.
okay?
That's right, that's right.
Should I plug the microphone in?
Would you mind holding a mic?
Go for
No,
it.
you're the best, and thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. Yes. Mr. Currid is one of our living legends here in the village of Monroe.
Thank you.
Giant knot hanging off it.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm going to have to read from this. A couple of years ago, I could have winged this, but those days are gone, you know.
No
so-
worries.
Mayor Dwyer, members of the board, ladies. I'm here tonight with my with my good buddy Jack Collins and fellow Legionnaire from Post 488. And we're here to discuss on a twofold thing. Tonight, we want to speak about the displaying of the POW MIA flag, and secondly, the protocol involved when the American flag is flown at half-staff. I will address you as regards to the POW MIA flag. Jack will address the flying of the American flag. The MIA POW flag had its origins in the town of Monroe, actually the village of Harriman. American Legion Post 1573 put forth a resolution to Congress on October 6th, 1974, requesting a flag designate as MIA. On April 10th, 1990, only 14 years later, the 101st Congress passed the U.S. Public Law 101-355, authorizing the establishment of the POW MIA flag from all American wars. It was first flown for the first time at Harriman Square. Copies of the resolution,
Thank you, sir.
and it's good reading. You know you had nothing to read.
Yeah.
Okay. The POW MIA flag is a very special symbol to veterans, prisoners of war, missing in action. And it's a source of pride to the Monroe residents where it had its beginnings. It should be flown on all official buildings and monuments without exception. But unfortunately, it is not. To illustrate my point, I took a drive to the village of Monroe today, stopping at official buildings and monuments. Some of them might not, that I'm going to mention, might not have come under your jurisdiction. Please let me know, so that when we go before the town board, we'll be able to
Sure.
address it. The first is the Monroe Cemetery. They had the POW MIA displayed. The ambulance corps does not display the POW MIA flag. I don't know if that comes under your jurisdiction. It does, okay.
You take care of that.
Veteran Memorial Park displays the POW MIA. The 9/11 Memorial does not display the POW MIA. There's the large flagpole between the ponds on Lakes Road, does not, and that's sad because that's, people driving through see that, does not display the POW MIA. The John DeAngelis building, the American flagpole attached to the building is bent and leaning to the ground. They also do not display the POW MIA. The Village Hall does not display the POW MIA. The Police Department displays the MIA POW. The old ambulance Corps displays the MIA POW. In fact, they have a beautiful new concrete base at the bottom of their flag. I don't know who did it, but it was a swell job.
Where was this?
The old ambulance.
At the
Oh.
old ambulance building.
Nice job, Neil. The Village Garage has a POW MIA. The Fire Department displays the flag. Smith Clove Park does not display the flag. Does they come under your jurisdiction?
Yes.
Okay. I guess what we're trying to say is that we would like that if the board would mandate all official buildings under your control and monuments
Mhm.
be made to display the MIA POW flag.
Absolutely.
And does anybody need the ones that aren't, we'll say, in compliance?
I
You
have
need
them
them?
here.
Do you have
The
them?
ones that are or aren't,
Aren't.
I have that, I think.
have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll do it, and then we'll circle back again with you, just to make sure we are fully compliant. Okay?
Thank you.
And just so I understand, and you can teach me or teach the board, the American flag, full staff, MIA flag
Underneath it.
underneath it.
Or as you're looking at it, to the right of the American flag.
That's right.
As you're
Well,
looking at
yeah,
it.
that's it, right,
And
right.
lower.
And lower,
And lower.
exactly. And the same thing holds true when it's brought down to half, it's fully deployed down to the bottom and then brought back up to half. and
it's
this
still the
sits-
highest, it's the
still
highest
highest.
in the row.
That's right.
Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah, the MIA POW can go underneath the American flag.
Okay.
Or
On the same mast.
On the same mast.
Yes.
Okay.
It has its own pole, it's, as you're looking at it, it's to the right of
Well,
the
I think,
American
yeah, right, yeah. I think between the ponds would be appropriate, for sure. Yeah.
flag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Jack Collins.
Thank you, Marty. Here's a copy of my prepared remarks for the record. I too have to write stuff down, so, and I'd like to thank your husband for his service.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and trustees of the Village of Monroe. My name is Jack Collins. I chose to settle in Monroe in 1998 after 23 years service as an Army Master Sergeant. I have no ties to Monroe, although I was stationed at West Point in the 70s and then again in the 80s. I spent more than 10 years serving overseas. It was there that I nurtured and cultivated a great affection for our American flag. I wish to speak with you about the honor and responsibility of flying our national symbol. Tomorrow at my home, the American flag and POW MIA flag will be at half-staff for the day. Why? Because Governor Cuomo ordered that it be flown that way in honor of Gettsville Fire Chief Irving Eisenberg. I would hope that every flag in our village would be flown that way too. It's very easy to erect a flagpole and hoist a flag. It takes much more to honor that flag properly. It takes effort and it takes conviction. I'm asking that the village take on that effort and conviction. On Route 208 there is a bakery. It has a very nice flagpole, one that I would love to have out in front of my home. It flies no flag. I'm fine with that. I find it easier to understand why someone chooses not to fly a flag at all than to see our flag flown irresponsibly. We have a bank in Monroe owned by a Canadian company. This bank always, yes, always displays the flag properly. I'm somewhat embarrassed that not all of our flags in Monroe are flown that way. We are taking this step, first with the village, next we will speak with the town. Finally, we will approach our businesses who choose to fly our American flag. I hope that one day all of Monroe will be uniform in displaying the American flag respectfully, abiding by all laws and directives from our leaders. I work at West Point. I enjoy being caught outside at 5 p.m. when our American flag is lowered for the day. It gives me a chance to salute it. Often during times like that, or during the playing of our national anthem, a tear will well up in my eye. I know personally the sacrifice my fellow brothers and sisters in arms paid for us to be a free nation. A nation that so many want to come here to live the American dream. Let's help them by being responsible at our flag. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can give you a couple of, these are emails that that you can subscribe to that inform
believe-
me about the half-staff notices.
I believe this is the same subscription we have.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
There are apps that you can get for iPhone or Android phones that can alert you to the status of our flag. I think it's really important. We recently, it's not taught in our schools anymore, and it's up to all of us to try and make sure that we just do the right thing.
I
Thank you
agree.
for your time.
Thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Your service.
I too have been caught at 5 p.m. when they lower the flag, but this was at McGuire Air Force Base. I had just finished food shopping, and for those of you who don't know, when the flag gets lowered at the end of the duty day, taps and the national anthem are played, and if you can hear the music, you have to stand and salute a flag if you can see one. Otherwise, you have to salute where you hear the music coming from. Cars are not allowed to drive on base while this is happening. So if you are not in uniform and if you are not a member of the service, you would need to pull over and stop your car and put it in park. Many people, though, do choose to exit their vehicle and stand at attention. So thank you, sir, for your service.
I would like to thank you because I learned a lot that I really wasn't aware of. And my dad was a veteran, and he also worked at West Point, and the flag does mean a lot to us. I just didn't realize. And when I was going to Pine Tree as a kid in 5th grade, our job as 5th graders was we learned how to put the flag up, take it down, fold it the right way. It was a long time ago, but it was really special to us. And, maybe something like that could be brought back. And I know we will definitely do what we need to do. I didn't really know much about the MIA flag, but thank you.
So if I could just say, your police department has done a very good job with the flag in front of the police department on the street here. It is almost always exactly where it's supposed to be.
Thank you, sir.
Several members of our police department have served in the military, so I'm certain that they've made sure that carries on.
Okay. Sir?
Mr. Carl?
Yes, sir.
It's finally your turn, John.
You can put that back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just a couple things. I was quiet last meeting, but a few things I just wanted to go over that we had spoken about before.
Sure.
First, the dumpsters behind the Plum House, which we know are on village property.
So,
Now we got a pile of brush over there.
yep. So I'll tell you something interesting about those two pieces real quick. The brush was actually cut down by the surveyor to provide access
Good night, gentlemen.
to be able to pin the property.
Good night.
So they were happy to take it down, but they certainly weren't happy to dispose of it.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, in fact, you're right, it is our property, and we're directing council right now to craft a letter to all the property owners from the entire section of the encroachment.
Yeah, and that, again, number 1 Stage Road, the old Morton Morshack building with the
Yep.
signs out there that say your car will be towed. That's village property.
Yep.
For somebody to post signs saying cars are gonna be towed if they're there, they don't have the right to do that. Those
Nope.
signs don't belong there.
No, as a matter of fact, Thursday and Friday, the backyard, the parking lot's gonna be prepped, Saturday it'll be paved, and then Monday there'll be a barricade up. There won't be any parking in the village parking lots. There'll be no more access until such time as they're advised and decide what they're gonna do.
I know I had sent you a text, Mayor, regarding, and it came from Anthony Leone. He's
Yes, yes.
home.
Yeah,
Actually, he was coming home from the hospital, and he drove up 9 Freeland Street. There's a large school bus, Chick Viscardo's old house.
Yep.
There's a large
I
school
seen
bus
it.
parked in the yard.
the yard, yeah.
Unless the Partridge family moved in there. Is that even permissible?
We actually,
Have you noticed it, Irene?
I haven't.
yeah,
You
so,
go, you know Chick Fiscardo's old
Yes.
house? Look in the driveway, there's a full-size bus
he
parked.
backs it down.
Who, is it, it's not marked, the bus?
I've seen it parked in a driveway, I haven't seen any more. I mean, I didn't get out and go walking down
I
the
think it's
driveway.
quality,
But it's there, and it just
it's
doesn't.
there, I see it, and, Chief now knows it, so he'll do what he needs to do with it.
The next thing, YMCA, there was a gentleman here last month, I don't remember his name, inquiring about the secondary ingress and
Right.
egress. And the comment was made that the village board is against it.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe, I haven't missed too many meetings. I believe it was back in May, you had made a statement that the village board was going to come out with a joint statement regarding crossing of the Heritage Trail. And I never heard the statement, the joint statement from the board.
In writing, you mean?
Yeah, you were gonna present a joint statement, that was your exact words, from the board regarding the crossing of the Heritage Trail. That was in May, April or May.
I wasn't here for that meeting. I wasn't here for that meeting.
Yeah, but nothing has happened with that, and I was just
Yeah, well,
curious as to why, when the gentleman
nothing,
brought it
nothing
out and
intentional,
came out and said that we were dead against it,
right,
maybe not to that extreme,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you were against it,
right.
but yet, it just, something clicked and said, wait a minute, you were supposed to come out with a joint statement back in the spring, and you didn't.
I'll take it at your word, John, that I said it, but it was asked of us in session by Mr. Ali, and at that time, they asked us, and we said no. I said no, on camera, that I was not the board is not in favor of that second ingress.
Right, I remember all of that, but.
Yeah, yeah.
you said
But,
you were
yeah, no,
gonna
I
come out
get
with
you,
a joint
yeah,
statement,
yeah,
that's
and
just-
maybe
I'm just
we'll have to do it then.
kinda,
Never
just
thought about it.
kinda just letting you know that
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'd be curious to hear your reasoning why.
Okay, as to not having it, yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that would have to be something done individually, though, John. I don't think that you could, in all fairness, I've been very honest about my opinion about the why. And I've said publicly to many people who've come here that I don't have an issue with the crossing. And that's my opinion, but I'm one board member. So to put a blanketed statement out there, I don't think that, and I think that's probably why that wasn't done, is because if you want to ask us each individually, well, that's fantastic, and we all are entitled to our opinions and our thoughts and beliefs and the reasons why.
Well, like I said, I think if you go back to your minutes, you'll probably see where the
Yeah,
statement-
we
the
can take a look at
statement-
that.
the
Well,
statement was
at the
made.
last meeting, I believe the gentleman that asked the question asked about wanting the second exit, and that came out from the planning board, that the planning board never said there needed to be a second, just suggested it. That's kind of.
Of course, we were
right,
never told that.
Right.
Communication's the key to everything.
Yeah, but there was lots of opportunities to communicate, God knows. On January 15th,
yeah,
it was like a
I mean,
gospel reunion here.
I mean, certainly for everybody
Yeah.
sits around a table, I'm sure.
Yeah, I
things-
get it.
Things can prevail.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
we gotta look at the whole picture there.
Well, that's what it is.
My opinion, I
Yeah.
think belongs opened.
Right,
That's my opinion.
all right.
Emergency services, it just makes things that much easier for everybody. And if you drive an emergency vehicle in emergency mode,
Right,
things change. And
Right.
you gotta be able to get around and do what you need to do, so.
listen, I agree, I won't disagree with giving first responders every opportunity to get in there quickly and efficiently. That's not, but it goes back to the very same thing that we said right from the beginning. They came before the planning board, they did all their diligence, all their work, and they were approved to use that entrance as it now exists. Where was the concern for all that firematics and first responders and everything? I don't know, you don't know, neither one of us knows. Okay, so all I'm saying is that, we can revisit and rehash and regurgitate it, but at the end of the day, what's happened here is that a decision was made to allow the use, it was continued, and it was first presented to us, myself, and the town, that in fact, there would be no expansion without a second egress. That's what we were told.
I recall
Me too. And then 5 months later, after we dug enough holes, we found out there was nothing in the bottom of the hole. And that's a problem. We spent 5 months trying to get it done. And, you know, listen, I've apologized to you. We've spoken at length on a lot of issues. Mr. Mitz and I have, this board has. We've done a lot of things together. Nobody's beyond reproach, you know what I mean? And we all looked real hard to try to do what we have to do. And you know what? We're still continuing, because, as you said, you gotta look at the big picture. We're looking at the whole picture holistically. You know, we know coming out of Scuddamunk for that fire truck and your equipment, should they be staging there or a truck coming out of there, is brutal. And we believe that should be changed. We believe that that slip road on 208 should be changed and not be a one-way, but a two-way. That's my recommendation. That whole thing needs to be revisited, and it will be, because there is a project before the planning board, and there are other things going on that are gonna look at that much more 21st century than 1910. I mean, that road, I don't know if you remember, do you remember it when it was two-way?
I do.
Me too.
Bucky's Texaco was there when the car went in the side of
That's
the
right.
building, and there was a fatality there.
Yep.
Shortly thereafter is when that was
Exactly.
made one way.
Yeah, and I, you know,
But to Neil's defense, and I did say this publicly before, pouring rain, this man was out there with a group of men trying to figure out a better way to make that Y access work.
Mm-hmm.
And he's continuously done it. So, you know, I mean, I feel bad that he got beat up over it, and he continues to this day getting beat up over a situation that honestly, he didn't create. He's trying to change, and for the better for everybody, so.
I think, you know,
I think it will change too, by the way.
you know, it will, you know, everybody, you know, whenever there's a burning issue, everybody mobilizes into this village hall.
Right.
And then as soon as it's they're past them on the agenda, they just.
They leave.
But what's important, John, is he hasn't.
And
That's the
again,
bottom
I
line.
think, you know, again, now that everybody's beat it to death, now is the time to sit and, right, what's gonna make this work? Because everybody has had their opportunity to come in here and speak. The Y's gonna get their pool, but now let's get together, you know, and just, and make things happen.
Right.
And I agree with that 208, that whole mess over there,
Right.
something's gotta change. I've talked in the past about Freeland Street. You come up Freeland Street, whether you're driving a car or your school bus, one person trying to make a left-hand turn on a 4 Street, and that traffic gets backed up all the way back down to the
It's
traffic
insane.
light
Right.
and across the traffic light.
Right.
Coming the other way, if somebody's trying to make a left on Calvin Terrace, you gotta get the turning lanes in there.
Right.
You guys took the streets over. They're your streets. Now we're gonna pay the piper, because
Yeah.
cars stop, nobody moves.
Yeah.
So we gotta look at getting those turning lanes in there. And if you look basically from 4 Street down to almost across from Kenny Drive, if you look at the telephone poles that run through the yard over there, that's almost where the right-of-way, or the ownership of that property to the village is. So if you had to shift that, you know, those people are gonna
You
flip
could do
out
it.
when they see that, but you know what? It's
Tough.
your property. A
Right.
lot of those front yards are basically the village property.
Turning
some
lanes,
point-
though, on Freeland Street, John, they frighten me, and I'm gonna tell you why. We have a bus stop on 208 Rico Terrace. And last week, one of our drivers stopped just before Rico Terrace to let the high school kids off, and there is no turning lane there. But this car came around, the kid stepped off the bus, came around the right side of that school bus and almost killed a kid. Now, bring that to Freeland Street, where there are no turning lanes yet, but there will be. And as a school bus driver, what am I doing? I can't turn into a turning lane to discharge students, because then I have to worry about my left side. But now I'm also forced to worry about my right side.
I almost saw that today down in Parsippany.
It's frightening.
Linden Road, or Linden Lane was the name of the road, in Parsippany, Troy Hills. And just what you're talking about, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Not one car, but two. So
You know,
it's all, but something's gotta happen to keep the traffic flowing here.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about that, that's not even on my list tonight, but if you can get get with the
Get the hook.
town, because actually that child daycare center is in the town of Monroe.
Right.
The Learning
Yeah.
Center?
Yeah, the Learning Center. It's in the town of Monroe. That traffic control device is controlled by the county. Now, there are times when there's absolutely nothing going on
Right.
And they get a green light.
at that daycare center,
Yeah.
and that light cycles for everybody. There's got to be a way that, unless there's, trip pad where a car hits it and it activates it, why do we have to have that? Because it's 30, 45 seconds of you sitting in traffic, waiting for an empty driveway
On a
Right.
Saturday.
to have a green light. I don't know if anybody has noticed that.
Oh,
Oh,
I
yeah.
do it
But
all
that
the
might be
time.
something to talk with the town of Monroe and the county and put a push, because again, we want to try to keep the traffic flowing as best we
Get
can.
them to do North Main too, because that is the most ridiculous traffic light in the world. You gotta wait 3 minutes for every single sign to go. It's so frustrating.
But we beat up on that.
Well, that's not,
Out here a while back, there was a discussion about redoing this traffic
Yes.
configuration here at the blinking light. Is there any movement on that?
Spring.
Spring?
yeah, the contracts are done. The final construction documents will be going out to bid. And I didn't want to pull any triggers in the fall or winter because you're not going to get good numbers. I want you to earn the bid. So I said, let's get it all done, get our diligence, get the county, Orange County Transportation on board, which are administrating to the federal funds. Let them do their work, and then we'll put it out to bid. So I think June is a award date, tentatively right now. And I would like to see a big fire truck come out
Is
there.
that gonna have to be closed down while you're doing the work there? Are you gonna have to actually,
I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen the final construction documents yet, how they're gonna flag it. It's not gonna be easy,
there's not much room to do,
not much room to do anything.
there's not much room for error there. That's why
No.
I'm curious if you're gonna shut that down or wait till school gets out and then do it. and get
Well,
it
that's why I
done.
think June is the date. I did express it's a major route thoroughfare for the buses and daylight, weekday traffic, so hopefully it's after that.
Right,
It's gonna be a brutal summer, but better than having the buses and commuters and everything else involved.
The next thing is it's more of an outreach, maybe with the police department, but there's a lot of bicyclists on Spring Street and Freeland Street. A lot of them are migrant workers that are going over to Irish Hill to work, riding bicycles on the wrong side of the road. I don't know if there's any way that we can get an educational program in there that bicycles are supposed to ride with traffic.
Right.
Pedestrians walk against traffic, and you're just not seeing it here. And people probably don't know. But, Freeland Street at 7, 8 o'clock at night, now that it's getting darker earlier, they're riding the bicycles on the wrong side of the road. And
First thing in the morning too. As a matter of fact, the other day we had one of the bus drivers had experienced a gentleman come out of a driveway on Spring Street on a bicycle wearing you couldn't see him, he was wearing all black. Had she not just hit her lights on him at the right time, he would have been probably under her bus. But there's motorized bicycles. Every morning we encounter them at 5:45.
I've seen those.
And I don't know, Chief, are they legal?
What, were they electric or they're gas powered?
I don't know, they sound like they're gas powered. I don't know, but they make a noise.
Yeah. They shouldn't be operating anything, there's different classifications depending on, the miles per hour they can go and a certain equipment that's required. I would have to have an officer or particularly encounter
Yeah.
to see if it's missed the criteria for a motorized vehicle, which now you require like registration,
Right,
insurance, inspection.
Licensing.
All the safety equipment.
okay.
But I just would like to see some sort of an outreach program to let
Educate them, right?
let these folks know. I mean, they're just going to work to make a living to support their families, but just to let them know, you ride with traffic, not against it.
And they need reflectors.
We could
Yeah.
probably add that to an
Helmets.
agenda.
Okay, and I want to say for the last 2.5 weeks, the buses in my development were non-existent in quality because of the holidays, and no horn blowing. Well, guess what?
It was so pleasant.
It started up again. Now, I've left 2 messages over there. They don't even return my calls at Quality
Well,
Bus. My next step is I'm going to go meet with the school superintendent because they're under contract with Monroe Woodbury. They're doing door-to-door pickup. Nobody's going to tell me they're not. because McQuality told me that they're not doing it, and they are doing it. Drive down through my development, and every house that's got a chair out at the end of their driveway, the buses are stopping there picking the kids up. And they leave the chairs there all the time. But the horns are blowing again. If somebody's, Esther's in the house baking a cake or whatever, the horns are blowing again. It all started up.
Who's baking the cake?
So, that's a problem again. But I'm gonna, I'm gonna make it a point to meet with the school superintendent.
While you're there, you should foil how much we pay for it also. You'll be very interested to know that.
So,
Really? Did you get a $700,000 number?
Really?
not bad, huh?
That's what we're paying?
Yeah.
Or door-to-door pickup. Do your kids get door-to-door pickup?
No, Rye Hill Road in the dark. That's what I got.
The last thing I had.
It's $1 million.
I think that was it. Oh, that, 41 Freeland Street.
43?
43 is a mess.
Oh,
a
okay.
mess in itself. 41 is Pete Gaunt's old house.
Right.
That garbage truck could be there Thursday morning picking up garbage, and by Thursday afternoon, there's just as much garbage out there as they picked up that
Wait a
morning.
minute.
At the
Is it
yellow house?
Yellow house.
The car's parked in the front
Yeah.
lawn, the old salt box
Yeah, yeah,
colonial,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
Pete
yeah, yeah.
Gaunt's old house.
That's my bus stop.
You see the mess that's there? It's disgusting. It's disgusting. That's one of the first houses you see coming into the village of Monroe, you know.
Right.
It's not very impressive.
No.
I think the same ones that own the house in the back, Bill Gregory's old house, own that as well.
I think
And
you're right.
43 is one of your scooters. That boy rides his scooter up Freeland Street on the wrong side of the road. It's an electric scooter.
Electric scooter, yeah.
Every day, and he's gonna
They're
get
all over my
slammed.
development, they're riding those electric scooters, and it's just, you know, you hear
I mean,
cars
it's great that
locking
they're
their brakes up.
outside,
It's
but
just-
they're on the wrong road for that.
Now, 3Tel Holdings that you had on the agenda tonight, where is that? Is that the
That's the bakery on 208.
That's the bakery, okay. Just curious. Well, that about wraps it up for me this evening.
Thanks, John.
Everybody
And,
have a good night, thank you.
Just so we're on the same page, I drafted a note to the building department regarding that salt.
Yep.
I saw you did too.
Yep.
So I've got 4 locations that are being investigated right now.
All right, I've been back to work, but I'll be off Friday, and I plan on sending pictures that I have, I'm sending them over to the DEC.
Good.
So I'll probably CC you on that as well.
Yeah, please.
And I promise, I gotta get down to.
I was just saying, you need to get down there? Go ahead.
Well, I'll go down later, I'm gonna finish the meeting.
Oh, okay. I was hoping it was over, John. The meeting.
Okay. Mr. Mitz, please.
One tough cookie. I wanted to
That's
say
your
thank
job.
you to the board for letting us do this for the kids. I think it's being exciting. It's actually history-making that, that you're actually flying Santa into Monroe. That's pretty cool, with Mrs. Claus.
Right.
And just so you know, we have 2 young men who are special needs that are also going to be playing the elves back at the house as well, helping out with it. So it's a full, Monroe Woodbury's going to be providing string music, about 3 or 4 quartets they're trying to put together. And Make-Wish Foundation has informed me, in talking with them the other day, that they're going to send paperwork and maybe an aid, and we're setting one of the rooms aside so the kids can write letters to Santa Claus, and Mrs. Claus will help them out and do that. But I just want to say, in all the fighting we do over the years, Mayor, I'm glad we got to sit down and make something like this happen. This is definitely history-making. And I know, I've met with the fire department, they're all cool about it. Chief is real cool about it. He's been, his staff has been really good.
This is cool, look at him.
I'll tell you, he's the coolest in town. But I just want to say again, once in a while I should say thank you, and I want to say thank you from me, from Preservation of Rest Haven. This is Jim. He helps us out a lot with doing a lot of stuff. He sits there and he's security at the door, so if anything breaks out, he'll take care
Very
of it.
intimidating.
So yes, isn't he? So thank you again very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Lorraine, you got anything? No. Oh, okay. Good luck.
Good luck
Good luck
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
John, I'll send it to you, I have it. You also want to foil the field trip buses.
Also, so I have a copy.
You'll get a letter in the mail, Mr. Mix, like you do with all other events.
By chance, so I can get on it right away?
Once it's been completed, yes.
What is it?
I just want to list what you absolutely need from what you read tonight. So if I can get
Oh,
that,
oh, oh,
yeah,
oh, oh.
so I can get that list as soon as possible, and I'll get on them about it.
All right, no worries. Yep, you got it.
Your first task is to get the Chief Abby's number.
Already getting the number.
Good for you. Good for you.
Okay.
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening.
May I please request an update on Elm Street and Oak Street?
Sure. So, it's in the queue. We want to do the work, as you know, we've marked it out, actually, and we're ready to pull the trigger on it. And then O&R, when we reached out to them to find out what their plans were, they're putting in new gas lines in there. Okay? So, what happened down in Freeman Homes was just exactly what we don't want to happen, which is to redo the curbs, get everything done, cleaned up, sod planted, seed, all that, and everything's finished, pavement, and then O&R comes in and tears it right down the middle. People weren't happy, we weren't happy about it, but, they have the right to be in there. And there was no communication. This board communicates with O&R. And they told us what their plans were. Same thing with North Main and Spring Street. That's the reason we haven't done any improvements on that side. But what we are looking at, and I think may be possible, is we may be able to put some sort of a asphalt berm that would at least take it, somewhat. Yeah. So Trustee Conklin will be in touch with Larry, the boss, and see about trying to create some sort of a diversion in front of those houses. But we're definitely committed to the project. He's got all the parts down at DPW, ready to move forward, had it marked out, and then we made the courtesy call and found out, uh-oh. So, I'm glad we did.
Do you think perhaps you can keep me in the wing a little bit, just so I know when I'm gonna go over there?
Uh-huh.
You got it.
Good, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, I need a motion that we go into executive session for employee,
I'll make the motion.
I'll cry, but I'm seconding it.
call the question?
For personnel?
Personnel.
Personnel. Aye.
Aye.
Said employee.